When we open our phones in the morning, the very first thing we see is other people living their best lives. We see families dressed in matching outfits standing in front of Cinderella's castle at Disney World. We see couples holding hands on a beach in Hawaii with the sunset perfectly behind them. We see kids laughing and running through flower fields without a single care in the world. And we see moms standing in their spotless white kitchens, holding a fresh cup of coffee with a smile so perfect it looks like it came straight out of a magazine. Everything looks beautiful. Everything looks effortless. Everything looks like exactly the kind of life we wish we were living. And before we even get out of bed, before we even brush our teeth or drink our first cup of coffee, we already feel like we are behind. We already feel like somehow, somewhere along the way, we missed a turn and ended up on the wrong road. We look at our own lives and suddenly everything feels ordinary. Our apartment feels too small. Our relationship feels too complicated. Our kids, if we have them, feel too loud and too messy. And our bank account feels like it will never be enough to live the kind of life we see on that little glowing screen in our hands. This feeling has a name. It is called comparison. And it is one of the oldest, most deeply human experiences there is. Long before Instagram existed, long before social media was even a concept, people were comparing themselves to their neighbors, their relatives, and the people around them. They looked at what others had and felt the quiet sting of wanting something they didn't possess. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this feeling very well, and he had something incredibly powerful to say about it. Something that, once you truly understand it, has the ability to completely change the way you see the world around you. Epictetus was not a wealthy man. In fact, he started his life as a slave in ancient Rome. He had nothing by the world's standards. No property, no freedom, no status, no luxury. And yet, he became one of the most respected and admired philosophers in all of history, because he understood something that most people spend their entire lives trying to figure out. He understood that the things we envy in other people always come with a price. And that price is something we rarely see, because we are too busy looking at the surface of other people's lives instead of looking beneath it. So let us talk about Instagram families. Let us talk about those perfect, polished, beautiful accounts that make millions of people feel inadequate every single day. Let us pull back the curtain and look at what is really going on behind those flawless photos. Because Epictetus would tell you that what you see on that screen is the lettuce, and what you don't see is the 50 cents that was paid to get it. Imagine a couple. Let's call them Jake and Ashley. They live in a nice suburb somewhere in America. They have 2 kids, a golden retriever, and a house with a big front porch. On Instagram, their life looks absolutely perfect. Every Sunday they post a family photo. Everyone is smiling. The kids are in coordinated outfits. The house in the background looks like something out of a home decor catalog. And the caption always says something like, "Blessed beyond measure," or "These are the moments that matter most." Their followers love them. People comment things like, "Goals," and "Your family is everything," and "How do you make it look so easy?" And every time they post, they gain a few hundred more followers. Brands start reaching out. Free products start arriving at their door. And slowly, what started as a personal account becomes something bigger. Something that feels like a business. Something that comes with pressure, expectations, and a very specific kind of performance that never really stops. But here is what their followers don't see. Here is the part that never makes it into the photos. The morning of that perfect Sunday family photo, Jake and Ashley had an argument. It started over something small, the way it usually does. Maybe it was about money. Maybe it was about who forgot to schedule the kids' dentist appointments. Maybe it was just the kind of tired, worn-down argument that happens when 2 people are stretched too thin and running on not enough sleep. But by the time they had to take the photo, they had to put on their smiles and pretend that everything was fine. Because the followers were waiting. Because the brand deal depended on the post going up that day. Because the image had to be maintained. The kids didn't want to cooperate. The youngest one was in the middle of a full meltdown because she didn't want to wear the outfit Ashley had picked out. The older one kept making faces and running away from the camera. It took 45 minutes and a bag of fruit snacks to get everyone to stand still and smile at the same time. Jake was quietly frustrated. Ashley was quietly exhausted. But in the final photo, you would never know any of that. You would just see a beautiful family on a beautiful Sunday morning, living a beautiful life. And the vacation photos? The ones from that trip to Cancun, where they were sipping drinks by the pool, and the kids were splashing in the crystal clear water. That trip was paid for on a credit card. And 3 months later, they are still paying it off. Jake had been stressed about money for weeks before the trip, but Ashley had already told her followers it was coming, and canceling it felt impossible. So they went, they smiled, they posted, and they came home to a credit card bill that kept both of them up at night for a long time after. The spotless white kitchen? That kitchen is only spotless for about 15 minutes on the day they decide to film content. The rest of the time it looks like every other kitchen in America. Dishes in the sink. Crayon marks on the counter that won't fully come off. A drawer that is so stuffed with random things that it barely closes anymore. But you will never see that kitchen on Ashley's Instagram. Because that kitchen doesn't fit the brand. That kitchen doesn't get the likes. Now, you might be reading this and thinking, okay, but their life still looks pretty good. They're taking vacations, they have a nice house, they're making money from Instagram. That's still better than what I have. And that is a completely fair thought, it really is, because the point here is not that their life is secretly terrible. The point is that every single thing they have comes with a price that you cannot see from the outside. And the question that Epictetus would want you to ask yourself is this: if you knew the full price, would you still want to pay it? Because here is the truth about building a life around an image. It never really stops. There is no day off from being the perfect family. There is no vacation from the performance. Even on vacation, you are still thinking about the content. You are still thinking about the angles and the lighting and whether the kids' outfits match the aesthetic of your feed. You are still checking your phone to see how the last post is performing. And when the numbers are down, there is a quiet panic that sets in. A fear that the audience is losing interest. A fear that the brand deals will dry up. A fear that the carefully constructed image is starting to crack. Epictetus said something that cuts right to the heart of all of this. He said that when you are not invited to a dinner party, you didn't buy your invitation with the currency the host sells them for, which is attention and praise. Think about what that means in the context of social media. Every time someone posts a perfect photo of their life, they are buying something. They are buying attention. They are buying validation. They are buying the feeling of being seen and admired. But the currency they are using to buy those things is their authenticity, their privacy, their peace of mind, their time, and sometimes their financial stability. When you scroll past that photo without posting one of your own, you are not losing anything. You are keeping something. You are keeping your morning to yourself. You are keeping the messy, real, unfiltered version of your life protected from the judgment of strangers. You are keeping your bank account from being stretched by the pressure to live up to an image. And you are keeping your relationships free from the performance that comes with living your life in public. Let us talk about authenticity for a moment, because this is something that the Stoics cared deeply about. For Epictetus, virtue was the highest good. And virtue, at its core, is about being true, being honest, living in alignment with your real values, rather than performing a version of yourself for the approval of others. When Jake and Ashley smile for the camera after an argument, they are not being authentic. When they take a vacation they cannot afford because the followers are expecting it, they are not being authentic. When Ashley edits her face in photos to make her skin look smoother and her waist look smaller, she is not being authentic. And every time they do these things, they move a little further away from the real version of themselves and a little deeper into the performance. Now, this is not a judgment of Jake and Ashley. They are doing what millions of people do every single day in America. They are responding to a system that rewards the performance and punishes the reality. The algorithm does not care about your truth. It cares about your engagement rate. And so people learn very quickly that the real version of their life is not what gets the likes. The curated, filtered, idealized version is. But here is where it gets really interesting from a Stoic perspective. Because Epictetus would say that the people watching from the outside, the ones who feel envious and inadequate when they see these perfect photos, are actually in a better position than they realize. Because they still have something that Jake and Ashley have traded away. They still have their reality. Think about what it means to live a life that does not need to be performed for anyone. Think about what it means to wake up on a Sunday morning and just be in your house without thinking about whether it looks good enough to post. Think about what it means to go on a vacation and actually be present for it, instead of documenting every moment of it. Think about what it means to have a relationship where the two of you can argue and make up and grow together without any of it being filtered through the lens of how it looks to other people. That is a kind of freedom that money cannot buy. That is a kind of peace that no amount of followers can give you. And according to Epictetus, That is something far more valuable than the lettuce. Let us also talk about the financial reality of the Instagram lifestyle, because this is something that does not get discussed nearly enough. The pressure to keep up appearances on social media has a very real and very serious financial cost for millions of American families. Studies have shown that social media comparison is one of the leading drivers of lifestyle inflation in the United States. People see what others are buying, where others are traveling, and what kind of homes others are living in, and they feel pressure to match it. They take on debt to fund vacations they cannot really afford. They upgrade their cars and their wardrobes not because they need to, but because they want to keep up with the image they see online. They renovate their homes not because the old version wasn't perfectly fine, but because the new version will look better in photos. And the cruel irony is that the people they are trying to keep up with are often doing the exact same thing. They are also stretching their finances to maintain an image. They are also living in a kind of financial anxiety that their Instagram feed will never reveal. It is a race that nobody ever wins because the finish line keeps moving. Epictetus understood this cycle long before credit cards or Instagram existed. He understood that the desire for external things, for status and admiration, and the approval of others is a trap. Because external things are never fully in our control, we can work as hard as we want and still lose the business. We can be as charming as possible and still lose the followers. We can spend every dollar we have and still not feel like enough. Because the satisfaction that comes from external things is always temporary. It always fades, and then we need more. This is what the Stoics called the endless cycle of desire. And breaking free from it, according to Epictetus, requires a fundamental shift in what we value. It requires moving our attention away from the things we cannot control, like other people's opinions and social media metrics, and what the neighbors think of our car, and toward the things we can control, like our character, our choices, the way we treat the people we love, and the way we show up in our own lives when nobody is watching. Now, let us bring this back to the couple sitting at home on a quiet Sunday evening. The one who scrolled past all those Instagram photos and felt a pang of envy. The one who looked at their own life and felt like it wasn't measuring up. Epictetus would sit down next to that person and say something like this. Look at what you actually have, not what you think you're missing. Look at what you have. You have a Sunday evening that belongs entirely to you. You are not performing for anyone right now. You are not managing anyone's expectations. You are not calculating your engagement rate or worrying about whether the photo got enough likes. You are just here, present, real, unbothered. You have financial peace, or at least the possibility of it, because you are not spending money to keep up with an image. You are not carrying the weight of a lifestyle that costs more than it gives back. You are not waking up in the middle of the night worrying about a credit card bill from a vacation you took to impress people you barely know. You have real relationships, or at least the possibility of them, because the people in your life know the real version of you. Not the filtered version, not the highlight reel. The actual you, with all the messy, complicated, beautiful realness that comes with being a human being. And maybe right now, your life doesn't look like much from the outside. Maybe your apartment is small, and your car is old, and your Instagram feed is practically empty. Maybe you don't have a lot of followers, or a lot of status, or a lot of the things that the world seems to be telling you that you need in order to matter. But you have something that is very hard to put a dollar amount on. You have the freedom to be exactly who you are. And that, according to Epictetus, is worth more than all the lettuce in the world. There is a concept in Stoic philosophy called amor fati, which means love of fate. It is the idea that instead of resenting what we don't have, we can learn to embrace what we do have. Not in a passive, defeated way. Not in the way of someone who has given up on wanting anything better. But in the way of someone who has looked honestly at their life and recognized the real value in it. Someone who understands that peace and authenticity and genuine connection are not consolation prizes. They are the main event. This does not mean you should never want more for yourself. It does not mean you should never work toward a better life or a bigger dream. Epictetus would never tell you to stop growing. What he would tell you is to be honest about the price of what you want, to look clearly at what it actually costs, and to ask yourself whether you are truly willing to pay that price, or whether you are just chasing something because you saw it on someone else's feed and thought it looked good. Because here is the thing about the Instagram family with the matching outfits and the Disney vacations and the spotless white kitchen. They are not your competition. They are not a measuring stick for your life. They are just people trying to figure it out just like you, paying their own prices for their own choices, living their own complicated, messy, real lives behind the perfect frame of a photograph. And the next time you see that photo and feel that familiar pang of envy, try to do what Epictetus would do. Try to look past the lettuce and see the 50 cents. Try to ask yourself what price was paid for that image. What was traded away? What is not being shown? And then try to look at your own life with the same clarity. Look at the things you have that cannot be photographed, the mornings that belong to you, the relationships that don't need an audience, the choices you made because they were right for you, not because they looked good to someone else. The Stoics believed that the good life is not the one that looks the best from the outside. It is the one that feels the most true from the inside. It is the one built on values that hold up when the camera is off and nobody is watching. It is the one where you can lie down at the end of the day and feel at peace with who you are and how you spent your hours. And that kind of life is available to everyone, not just the people with the big houses and the brand deals and the thousands of followers, not just the ones who seem to have everything figured out from the outside. It is available to the quiet ones, the unbothered ones, the ones who chose their peace over their performance. Epictetus spent his life teaching people how to find freedom not by acquiring more, but by wanting less of the wrong things. He taught that true wealth is not measured in followers or square footage or vacation photos. It is measured in the quality of your inner life, in your ability to remain steady and clear and genuinely yourself in a world that is constantly trying to sell you a better version of someone else's life. And in a country where comparison culture has never been more powerful, where the pressure to perform and keep up and show up perfectly has never been more intense, that lesson feels more important than ever. Because the algorithm will always show you someone who seems to have more. The feed will always be full of images designed to make you feel like you are not enough. The culture will always be pushing you toward the next thing, the bigger thing, the thing that will finally make your life look as good as theirs. But you have a choice. You can keep paying attention to the lettuce, or you can start noticing the 50 cents you already have in your hand. You can keep measuring your life against the highlight reel of people who are performing their happiness for an audience. Or you can start measuring it against the things that actually matter to you. The things that make you feel alive and real and free. The things that have nothing to do with how they look in a photo. You can keep scrolling through Instagram on Sunday morning before you even get out of bed, letting other people's curated images set the tone for your entire day. Or you can put the phone down, make your coffee, sit in whatever quiet or chaos your real life actually holds, and find something genuinely worth appreciating in it. Because here is the final truth that Epictetus wants you to hear. The life you are living right now, the unfiltered, unedited, unperformed version of it, is the only life that is actually yours. Everything else is just a picture of someone else's 50 cents. The matching outfits fade. The vacation ends. The followers move on to the next thing. The brand deals dry up. The spotless kitchen gets messy again in about 15 minutes. But who you actually are, and the life you are actually building in the quiet moments when nobody is watching, that is what lasts. That is what matters. That is what Epictetus, a man who owned nothing and was once owned by someone else, spent his entire life trying to tell us. The price of authenticity is sometimes loneliness. Sometimes it is invisibility. Sometimes it is the feeling of being left out while everyone else seems to be at the party. But what you get in return is something that cannot be taken away from you. Something that no algorithm can measure and no follower count can give you. You get to be real. And in a world full of perfect pictures, being real might just be the most valuable thing you have.